Going to call to order the Policy Review Committee meeting for Daniel Boone Area School District. It's Monday, February 26th at 6:15 p.m. All members of the committee are present. In addition, we have Mr. Hurley from administration. All right, anybody need an agenda? What's that?
As soon as my PC comes up, I should be
Okay. Anybody want to?
Yeah.
And then, is everybody able to connect to the Google Docs?
Yes.
Okay. If anyone does not, let me know. I can send you the instructions. I asked Mr. Matz if he could forward them to me, so I would have them in case someone didn't have them. So before we get into the agenda, there was one question on. I got a message from Mr. Rathgeb on electronic devices. Policy number is 237. It's the one that's going in front to the board tonight for a second reading. He had asked if he was reading it that we were not allowing students to use their phones at all during the school day. And
I think we said that it was at administration and the teacher's discretion.
yeah, it was. I think I think Mr. Hurley, what you said was basically the teachers sort of hold them accountable during the class time.
Yeah, the way I believe the way the proposed policy has shown is that it basically, which makes sense, is it says you can't do it unless it's authorized by an adult, a teacher or administrator, basically saying. And the principals do authorize it in certain situations, and teachers do authorize it when there's educational baggage. That's basically what that policy says.
All right.
If you had to read all the entire word for word and see that. I mean, I completely understand.
Yeah, when we first went through it,
I had to read it a couple times too.
not a lot of electronics.
It's a fair question. Yeah, like if you're really not looking at the exact verbiage. So I think what we should try to do is to find that exact verbiage, just highlight that as it brings it up tonight.
What's the policy number?
237. It's not on this agenda, no, it wouldn't be. It would be on probably 2 months ago, because last month it went through first reading. So it probably would have been last month's, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I remember looking at it.
But we went over it. I remember we had a debate about, because do we need to create a whole new thing because of the iPads, and the kids are going to have, Mr. Hurley, the kids are going to have school email addresses, correct?
What's that?
They're going to have school email addresses,
They're probably going to need that.
right? So they can get.
And I'll leave that part up to that. That's really getting that.
But I'm just saying, like, so I guess I'm assuming that we'll have
It's going
some.
to be a single log on, like that's like, like for
Yeah.
all, they'll log on to their iPads and it's going to give them access to all the different apps that we'll be using. It's like a single user, kind of like, you can log on like Google per se, and it gets you on to like 10,000 websites or whatever. It's going to be like a single login is what that's setting up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to look at this policy. This first paragraph does read, and it's kind of it prohibits the use of electronic devices by students during the school day. And it doesn't. I guess it's later in the document that it changed the whole authority. It seems to be saying that you can't use electronic devices.
And then later it says, at the teacher's discretion.
Couldn't we put that in the authority in the same paragraph? Or
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering if we could move the exceptions way up, so it's like right up
Well,
the page. I mean, if
We could just add the phrase under the under certain conditions as dictated by the
As
school
the
district. or-
exception.
That's,
Yeah,
Right, and then later on, we can outline, so
Do that.
we can make that edit. So I can ask
that would
them.
provide clarity for,
Well, then we can just hold that one till, for second reading next time.
that's all, yeah.
yeah, I feel that the exceptions are clear,
Yeah.
that in what manner we allow, so.
I didn't
don't think we
even
have to change
remember
anything about the word.
that opening line, but it's
For
definitely
health,
there.
safety, individualized learning, classroom, or other reasons determined by the appropriate building.
Right.
That's the kind of catch-all.
All right. Substitutes. Should put a special thing in here. So the first item in old business is the employment of substitutes. And there was going to be some language added from you, Mr. Hurley.
Yeah, what I recommend, it's actually pretty simple. I think if you go down under authority, and when you say by the district or contractor in order to provide continuity of instructional programs, operations, and services in schools, you just say district or contractor right there. Or, and then I would change the board where it's the second paragraph down. The board shall approve, cross out the word annually, the names of long-term substitute employees, which basically that's what we have with LTS. We bring that to you guys. Like you're going to have one coming up shortly. Quarters, I believe it's an addendum tonight. So you guys would approve the long-term substitutes. You pay them at a higher rate when they're in here for a long period of time. And then I would cross out where it says additional names may be added to the list of substitutes by the board during the school year. And that kind of puts it consistent with current practices, and currently we use the outsourcing agency for our substitutes.
Yeah, so it said something, the notes I have here were add language to include ability to outsource and how that will be managed.
Tell me what you guys think. It says after by the district or contractor, does that suffice for something? I mean, I know that's rather simplistic, but.
Where are you?
The very first paragraph under authority. They're going to be employed by the district, but or by contractor.
Yeah. It's basically saying we're going to try to get subs, is what it's saying. It's up to you guys, sir. It's maybe simple. Or contracted agency or something to that effect.
Not like a contracted agency.
Contracted agency.
So we would go through an agency and not hire individual contractors.
Currently, the district uses Precision HR for substitute teachers. Then the next paragraph, it says the board shall approve, cross out the word annually, the names of the actual word long-term substitute employees, period, and then crossed out, and the positions in which they may substitute. And then I say to cross out additional names may be added to the list of substitutes by the board during the school year.
So that's really saying we can be added anytime, you just have to be approved.
Yeah, basically, if we hire a long-term sub, we're coming to you, this is the essence of what it's saying. We can use an outside agency to provide substitute teachers. And then if we have a long-term sub, we're coming to you for approval. Obviously, if we don't have a board meeting, we can fill the position and then come to you retroactively, provided the person has appropriate clearances. That's the essence of the policies.
So then we'll make those edits and then move it to first reading. Everybody good with that? Yes.
Just so you guys know, just a side note, their fill rate, now, we're not the only district experiencing this. All the surrounding districts are having trouble, except for Randy White, I think. The fill rates are not really good at all. Throughout the county, we've actually gone so many times with our assistant superintendent. The fill rate we're currently getting is not where we want to be. I can say in other districts, I think Randy White, everyone is looking at the mark. They're using some teaching service, but my understanding is that some other places, they aren't hitting the mark, they're using some other systems. So we've got our eyes and ears open in terms of some difficulties. But that's just background knowledge for you guys.
We had 13 out on Thursday in one elementary.
Wow.
13 uncovered in one elementary.
In your district?
Yeah.
And what, so what, and what, is that a
We
common
only
thing?
have 30 teachers in my building.
So what do they do about that?
I had 2 classes in my room. I got 44 kids. Nothing you can do. It's insane. We had 10 uncovered the day before. We have a ton. You can't get anybody.
This is the epidemic.
Yeah, but, I mean, so you can't get anybody, but can't the district limit to how many people they can let off?
We all have flu. I mean, nobody's,
Oh, everybody's just calling out sick.
yeah, and I mean.
Nobody
I-
wants you to come in if you got a fever.
Yeah, I mean,
Kids, yeah.
I went on a Friday with 104.5, and my principal sent me home because I knew that I wasn't covered. It wouldn't be covered. There's nothing you can do. I mean, they're not going to accept. They're not going to take a personal day. They're not going to let you take a personal day.
Well, no,
you
no,
can't
I-
prevent. I mean, literally, our whole place is sick. Just,
But except for this period where everyone said how are the fill rates normal? Are we able to, is there a substitute shortage and then severe?
Yeah.
There's a systematic substitute shortage, and I think if you go back about 5 years ago, throughout the state, there were very few teaching jobs out there, so the colleges were putting out less and less teachers. Therefore, the substitute pool is now declining to the point where it's affecting all those surrounding schools. Fair question.
Well, that and the fact that most districts are only paying like $100 a day,
Correct. That's also a point.
which is, you
and
know,
some districts have a history of not hiring their subs. So why are you going to sub for them?
or not hiring at all,
Yep.
right?
That does affect our pool. So
Yeah.
they're optimistic that we can find someone else.
All right.
Don't fit on policy. So
We're on the other side of the library there. So the next, we'll move on to new business. So this whole 300 series is a blending of our old employment policies that were currently in 3 and 4 and 500. So they just sort of mashed them all together. And then I don't know did everyone see the sort of the matrix that cross-referenced should be in the attachments?
Thanks.
And it sort of summarizes all of the 300s. Excuse me. So that's where a big chunk of these were pretty much through the 200s, which is good. So let's start with 313 is evaluation of employees. So as it's been handed to us, it's pretty much, for the most part, all redone by PASPA. Most of the content from our old policies has been omitted. I have a question, Mr. Hurley, on the evaluation process. So do all the schools adhere and follow the same practices?
Yeah, Act 82, what this policy does is it gets us consistent with our policies in line with Act 82, which is about 2 years old, 3 years old. And it changed the way our teachers are currently evaluated. Basically, the essence of it is teachers are evaluated right, wrong, or indifferent in a combination of different factors. First, obviously, there's principal observations of the current classroom practice, which is based upon the Danielson model, which accounts for about 50% of their evaluation. And also, there's data components that are incorporated into the teachers' evaluation, including their students' test scores, which is particularly the p-value scores, which is the growth their students make. What this is basically, this is state language. It's very consistent with what current are required to. State law supersedes school board policy. You know what I mean in regard, and that's what Act 82 is. That's basically defining this in your policy, what it is, and what's going on.
So it says they're required to be evaluated once a year. Is that what we do?
Oh, well, when you say evaluate, like the formal.
I mean, I'm reading it from
Okay, the formal.
professional
evaluation-
employees are required to be
Yes.
evaluated at least once per year.
Absolutely, and to answer your question, absolutely, they are a formal written evaluation, and the teachers get a formal written evaluation based on Act 82 and what's in here. Teachers are evaluated periodically, and principals meet with teachers periodically about their performance throughout the entire year. I mean, that happens.
But what does periodically mean?
Like walkthroughs, unexpected walkthroughs.
Principals are required to exactly.
They have a, administration has, I mean, I don't know about how many, but administration has a requirement to hit so many per day or per week or however your school does it. And so they happen.
So how's that, where's the policy for that?
There is no policy on that.
But I mean, if they're required to do it, how do we know they're doing it, and how do we know?
We have a
Also-
system, we do a couple things. First, we have a system called PAE Tech, which the principals report their evaluations, both formal and what we call informal observations of the classroom practice that's going on. What they do is they periodically walk through teachers' rooms and for segments of time. For example, like maybe they're focusing on the beginning of the class instruction, which some people call the anticipatory set of the hook for the lesson. So they're walking in the first 10 minutes of classes on every day of that week. They're trying to go around at different times to try to see what teachers are doing. What they do is...
Do they document what they do?
They should be. Most of the time they do. Sometimes you walk in, it's also very informal. I can tell you, it's informal. There's also times where you walk into a classroom because it makes sense because you happen to be in that area at that time or whatever. We also walk into classrooms. It's sometimes teachers ask us to come into classrooms once to get feedback on particular things. What do you see? How am I doing in terms of my level of questions that I'm asking on Bloom's taxonomy, for example? So principals will go in there also to get feedback.
Is this covered by administrative procedures that it's documented?
What's that?
Is there other procedures that document what?
I can share that with you. I'll be happy.
No, I don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
But that does lead to the other, I had asked you something about document, I guess, from the ESBA, that there are things that we can buy that align. That's where we get our policies from.
For example, and to answer your question, and I'll throw some light over that for you. For example, like one of the things in teacher observation and practice, planning and preparation. Well, and teachers are required to have lesson plans every single day. Well, they're submitted to the principal. The principals are going through, and it's all computerized, and they're going through every week and they're looking at the teacher's lesson plans to make sure they have the requirement elements of the lesson plans. Classroom environment, basically domains 2 and 3, we look at environment and instruction. Those are things that people see during the classroom itself, like they're walking in, and that's when they're going, when she talks about walkthroughs, that's what they're looking at, domains 2 and 3. Professional responsibility, domains 1 and 4 are basically out of the classroom types of activities. Are you communicating with parents? Is your website and learning tools, your bulletin boards, learning tools, those types of things is what you'll see there. 2 and 3 and the teacher observation and practice is where you're seeing what the principals are seeing in the classroom itself. The other components are database and they're collected from PSSAs, DFOS scores, and things of that nature. It's good questions.
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No.
So it says here that the superintendent should develop plans and they should be submitted for board approval. Do you remember the last time that was done?
Say that again?
It says here that the superintendent's, the evaluation plans are supposed to be submitted for board approval. Do you know the last time that was done?
No, I don't have that off the top of my head, and we can probably find that out.
And then it also says that they need to be reviewed periodically and updated as necessary. And, what you're telling me now is that, they get updated when either something internally triggers a change in the way we evaluate, or when Pennsylvania Department of Education, triggers a change in the way we evaluate.
Exactly, and our current evaluation model is right from the Pennsylvania Department of Education in regards to what the requirements are. So
Okay.
great point.
All right.
I didn't see where, see the superintendent shall ensure the evaluation plans are reviewed periodically. Where does it say that it goes to the board?
Right under delegation of responsibility, it says that the plans have to be submitted for board approval. It doesn't say on what interval, and it does, I was just curious when the last time that happened was.
It also says the board shall be informed periodically about the results of the evaluations.
And again, periodically, it didn't even address a time. That's all.
So in 2 years that I've been here, I've not ever, I don't think
Yeah,
I've
that's kind
ever
of what I'm
seen
saying.
any.
That's also not part of policy, hasn't been part of our policy.
Oh, this is a change.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
I can remember, and when that case was presented, it was at the, we were over at the, where was that?
Middle school?
The BCTC, we were over
Oh,
there.
okay.
Because I remember that's when it was presented, yes, for the, well, actually, the stuff was going, but I can't recall the exact date. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
So someone's rated needs improvement. It says here that subsequent overall rating over the next 10 years of the first overall rating of needs improvement, where the employees in the same certification shall be considered unsatisfactory. So I once a year, I'm the principal. Once a year, I go in your classroom and I rate your one evaluation as needs improvement. If you get another one over the next 10 years, you're considered unsatisfactory.
And when we say one, when you're saying, we're sparsing words.
I'm reading. I'm not.
It's the end of the year evaluation is when they're talking about needs improvement. The evaluation is actually ongoing throughout the year. The principals, what they're doing is they're gathering, every time they walk into a classroom, like for example, Melanie's gathering evidence of direct observation. Am I seeing high-level questions being, are the students actively engaged? Every time she walks into a classroom, which is frequently, she's gathering evidence on that particular information. She's gathering evidence when she's speaking to parents, when she's looking at their websites, when she's checking lesson plans, and all that is culminating. And then we also gather test scores. Now, Melanie doesn't have the test scores attributed to her teachers at that age level, but at the older age levels, test scores are also put in there. All that comes together for these things here where you say distinguish, proficient, needs improvement, and fail. And that's the end culminating evaluation. It's not the entirety.
Is it all at the end of the year, though? It says end, I assume it's at the end of
As
the
soon
year.
when I use the words end of the year, as soon as the state gives us the test scores, which is wonderfully slow, it's kind of
But they're all together, they're not throughout the year, you're not on different times.
yeah, and so they all come in approximately the same time. What to do with test scores.
So this is the equivalent of a year-end appraisal.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly the equivalent of that.
But it's funny, I did find it odd.
It's really oddly
You
worded.
get one needs improvement, and you have 10 years, and you get another one, and you're unsatisfied.
Oh, and what happens if you're unsatisfactory?
But you could be terminated, ultimately you can be terminated if you get too unsatisfactory.
And that's if you're once a year, your year-end basically evaluation of your entire
Year one,
Year.
year 10.
is rated unsatisfactory.
And I will say, I mean, it's very hard in the field, like unless the test scores are invisible, you know what I mean, to be not satisfactory. So,
Yeah, I mean, the test scores, it says that you can't be, in the policy, it said you can't be rated unsatisfactory based on test
based on
scores.
your sole evaluation, that's why 50% of that relies upon principal observations. The test scores are.
Well, I mean, if I'm teaching like the highest end kids and they're performing well, like,
That's part of achievement is part of it. There's also something called PGOS, which is growth. In other words, where the students started and where the students ended, and that'll go. Growth goes into that also.
And how many
Sort of
how many
what you're saying.
teachers a year are rated unsatisfactory
Not a lot. Very few.
or needs improvement?
I'd
like-
say 5.
5?
Yeah, I'd say 5.
But,
I shoot from the hip. You're asking me to shoot from the hip. I'd say 5.
I mean, I'm not holding you to it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's-
shooting from the hip.
All right. So there's guidelines on all the observations that the administration does
Yeah,
to
there-
make up the
We
input to
have
this.
rubrics, just so you know, there are rubrics that are quite extensive, and we didn't make these up, these came from the state, that
Yeah.
are very specific in terms of the evidence that we have to gather to rate someone proficient, to rate someone distinguished, to rate someone needs improvement, or to rate someone fit. It's very outlined to the T by the state. Great question, Chris.
Is anybody uncomfortable with moving this on to first reading as is?
No.
It's fine.
All right. Sorry, we spent a lot of time on that one. Physical examinations. And this is, again, for employees. I didn't have any questions on this other than the The f- the frequency of this.
Paid by the applicant. It says that the applicant has to pay.
Oh, yeah.
It's standard.
So this is just as you're hired, you have to get a physical? It also says the board may require an employee to undergo a physical examination at the board's request.
Anytime.
Great.
I mean, I mean, how would the board have any clue that,
Why would they care?
or what, or- yeah, I mean. I just can't see it happening.
I would, you know, they specifically spell out tuberculosis in the test, but I mean, I guess,
That's what I'm suffering from right now.
yeah, but in, you know, I mean, I guess there could be some sort of, you know, some sort of thing that is not identified that, you know, we'd have to be concerned about. I don't know what it could be, but
You know, my physical fitness.
it gives you the opening to like require additional information from somebody's doctor, I guess.
Next paragraph's a little strange.
What-
The employee can get out of having the medical examination based on those scores.
Yeah, I saw that too.
You don't believe in doctors?
Well, any questions or concerns on this?
Look, I do have to, I'm gonna tell you, it's against my religion for you to find out.
What do we do with the results of the physical? I mean, like, are they, it's a requirement to be hired, but like, does someone fail a physical? I mean, we don't,
It's never had it happen.
but like, how could you? I mean, they just do, you take a physical, what, if someone has really high cholesterol, we don't hire them? Do we do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, what do we do with those records when we get them?
It says it's supposed to go in a separate file.
No, I get that, but like, I don't understand why we,
I think what we're looking for is primarily, do they have a TB test? Like, you know, like, or appropriate vaccination, like. things like
Right.
that.
well, but this has been updated with current legislative language. I mean, the whole opt-out for religious reasons and,
Yeah, if they're Christian Science, they sort of get opt out.
but we, as far as you know, someone gets a physical, we take the results, we put them in their file, and that's the end of it.
Never had any issues in that regard.
It's just bizarre. All right.
We don't have drug testing. But that's the other standard thing, when hiring, there's.
Well, it doesn't say that in here about drug testing.
It's a fair question. Actually, that would be something.
Well, that's what I mean. I when I was looking through these, I didn't see a policy on that.
That's actually very good.
I'm that's yeah. beyond shocking to me
Well,
that,
all that language about TV, that was like just, I mean, that was just updated in this act, section 1418 of the state Pennsylvania Code in 2010. You know, I mean, so they're still working under they're still working at the state level under the assumption that this is the thing that we should be checking out.
so we don't drug test teachers when we hire them. Does anyone else find that surprising?
I'm a state employee and I don't get drug tested. They give me a car.
God,
I wish somebody give me a
we got, I mean, my company, almost every company I've ever, they all
If you
drug
drive your
test.
truck, you get random drug tests.
Yeah.
Everybody
right.
keep that in mind when you're on the road when I'm there. During the day.
So we're good with moving this one on?
Sure.
Everybody's good with this?
Yes.
All right. HIV infection. So this one is pretty much completely new content from PASBA.
It's fairly standard.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that stood out to me was the superintendent or designee shall be responsible for developing and releasing information concerning infected employees.
Read that again,
Yeah, right.
because that's like HIPAA.
Right. The superintendent or designee shall be responsible for developing and releasing information concerning infected employees. It's also quite vague. Then it goes on to, I guess, should someone find out, then, you're protected against verbal abuse and whatever. I don't, this one's like, I don't know, wouldn't know where to begin to offer any changes, but I just thought that first sentence there under delegation of responsibility seemed odd.
We probably ought to talk to superintendent about that, because we talk about privacy and courtesy of people. That's a real gray area, just to make sure.
But as an employee, you're not required to tell your employer.
No.
That's a
Or
real.
Doesn't that go back to the other one?
And the
Physical
student.
examination, if you have,
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, tuberculosis, I mean, that's the same thing.
Yeah, again, I guess
Same superintendent.
we
has to develop
can't
policies.
not hire someone because of that.
Correct.
Yeah, and there's also language in here, if they're infected, they can't work, they're covered by that.
Yeah, just like any other medical condition. I feel like this policy's update is like 20 years behind, like 20 years late. I don't know. So,
Legal review.
like in my mind, someone should review that first line, and I don't understand that.
Yeah, let's have it.
Anything else on here that stood out to anybody? Anything else you want to question for Mr. Subers, since we're going to ask him to look at this?
I just wanted to ask a question. Is it possible that the reason for that statement being in there is that if you have an employee who is HIV positive, and they are somehow incapacitated, we call in an ambulance, somebody needs to be able to tell that the ambulance staff, that's why they designated a person. I read through the designation in these regulations that follow, or the act that follows, and it specifically says that you have to name a person who can disseminate that information for reasons that are allowed. You know, I'm just wondering if that's
They don't
the
have,
reason why.
but they don't have to tell anyone that they have HIV.
No, I think it's the same, but if you know that they do.
Right.
No, I'm just saying, I'm wondering if that's the reason why it's in there. You know, not to say that they're going to be sharing that information.
Because medical
Health
staff now
professional,
take
if-
precautions, like no matter what. I mean,
the precautions are supposed to be taken.
like, I don't care if you tell me or not
regardless.
tell me, I'm going to
Right.
pretend that you do and just
Right.
take,
I was just curious.
you know what I mean? No, I hear, what you're saying makes sense. I just think,
Yeah, I know what you're saying too. It says in the act that if someone's going to be a person to share that information, you have to designate that person in your policy.
if the
So-
person wants it, right?
Yeah,
If they want
right.
someone to know,
Yeah, and the regs the act that they're referencing back to is a 1990 reg, just like you said, it's like 20 years old. This is new.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's newly written anyway. All right, so we'll have Mr. Subers review that. All right, conduct and disciplinary procedures. We'll be here all day on this one.
So it just says that you have to follow policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if a teacher, breaks one of these, 1 through 5 there, the under delegation of responsibilities. Is that a situation where if there's not another teacher or another administrator that actually witnesses it, then you would do what? If it's reported that they did this, you would then conduct a investigation?
Any sort of report of this type is investigated thoroughly.
And then what if what happens to the employee while that's being done?
Generally speaking, I obviously have to look at it, but generally speaking, if an employee is suspended without or with pay.
Depending on the severity.
Yeah.
And this superintendent determines what that
Yeah.
is?
It's duty to report to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just says in here that the superintendent or designee, so if you had depending on the size of your district, you may have someone whose job it is to manage all of this, right? If you're in a big district. So that person could be like the chief of police, so to speak, for the district, right? And so they can make up their own policies and procedures on how they want to handle the application, like you said, who determines whether or not someone's suspended, not suspended, with or without pay. None of that's spelled out in policies. So the superintendent makes a decision.
I think it would be very difficult to investigate every possible scenario.
Yeah, no, it is.
And so that's just basically see what you have in front of you, and try to use good judgment. But
Yeah.
it's at heart first and foremost.
And do they typically, on those scenarios, like the one that was reported to us?
Can't speak to that.
No, I know, but in a scenario similar to that, like, do we consult our attorney to make sure that we're not doing anything we shouldn't do?
Respectfully, I don't want to speak to any recent incidents in any way.
Okay, are there any situations where do we consult regularly with our attorneys on how we are disciplining our teachers?
I will speak, for example, in a general sense, our lead is part of any serious situation. You know what I mean? We're in consultation with our solicitor because our solicitor, obviously, they have the knowledge.
Yeah, okay, so that's a regular practice.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have questions, concerns on this?
Our solicitor's under contract, we can pay him.
No, yeah, we have
We don't have.
a retainer for him,
Yeah.
so some stuff's covered under that.
But is all stuff covered, or are
Not
there?
everything, but
No.
a lot of stuff. I mean, some stuff is covered. I shouldn't say some stuff is sorry. Not you guys.
Can I do my tax?
All right, any questions or concerns on this?
No.
By the group? All right. Educator misconduct. This one's, so this is another one that's well-traveled and well-covered. So I did not have any questions on this particular one.
I don't see where it calls out what disciplinary action is being taken. Is that reported to the authorities?
Yeah, I think this one is typically beyond school or administrative authority, right?
I had a question under investigation, the third paragraph. It says, within 90 days, blah, 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 blah. The superintendent or designee shall report to the department the outcome of its investigation and whether it will pursue local employment action. Is that a standard term that I'm not understanding? Local employment action?
Yeah.
They don't mean local, like, disciplinary action. They mean,
That's what they were saying right there.
so that's what employment action
Yeah, they
means?
basically they want to know what the outcome of the investigation and then what are we doing about it as a school district.
That is a commonly understood term that I just don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I care about.
That includes suspension up to
And
termination.
that's the only, like, outcome terminology.
I look at it like, does if you use the NFL as an analogy, does the team want to take their own disciplinary action?
Right.
Or are they going to wait for the NFL to do something? And this seems like we have to report, are we taking any action on our end as far as their employment goes? and then, or are we just, holding fast and waiting to see what happens?
Right,
That's
okay.
essentially what that means with local.
I see, but that, yeah, I get that. Okay,
I mean, that's my interpretation of it.
if that's what that means, I have no issues.
All right, any concerns on that one? Mr. Miller?
My only concern would be since it's such a topic and it's a new policy, is that something that we should look at? Should we have the solicitor look at this just because of the nature of it?
We certainly can have Ron take a look at that. It's just the nature of stuff. I mean, what that's basically the way I read it when I did the prep work. It's basically outlining the reporting requirements that we have state on certain offenses. As a result of many laws that have been passed in the state, like you work part of education, and obviously investigations and things like that.
Just making sure all the definitions that are.
Yeah, we can do that. Because it is a significant, like, I know what you're saying, like, in the scheme of 1 to 10 of serious policy, or it's the highest policy we get, right, in terms of seriousness.
All right. So we'll have that reviewed. Bullying and cyberbullying. I feel like we already did these, and now we're redoing them. I don't know about you, Mr. Hurley, but
Absolutely. I mean, the stuff that's in bold is what's new. And
yeah.
the bullying is in bold. And the
So they may have had this, sometimes what happens is it takes them like 2 years to update a policy, we get it, and then while we're going through our motions, they get another update, which looks like that's what this is, because they've updated like 2 words to the whole policy.
Right.
So, Mr. Hurley, what is the Safe School Report?
At the end of the year, state collects data from us on various discipline incidents, including serious infractions, including bullying, any type of serious harassments, fighting, weapons, and basically it's stuff that we gather from our different buildings. And it's really around the serious infractions within the schools. If you ever see the Delegation, once a year in the newspapers, they put out a list of persistent behavior schools, which thankfully we're never on, but they're out. That's where that data is coming from, and so it's we collect that information throughout the entire year, and then in June, that's one of our summer casts is putting that together for the states, and that particular what we get from each of the buildings.
Somebody just shared a ranking in the safety schools, the top 30, whatever, I mean, that's what I was saying.
They pull miscellaneous types of things that they pull a lot.
It can all be manipulated. It's all be manipulated.
They could be.
I mean, it all depends. I mean, and I'm only saying that because we came out like number 10 in Pennsylvania, Springfield. So but based on what? I mean, you can just like you can make yourself the top of anything you want to be the top of. You move the data around. It's all subjective. You don't give much credence.
Any concerns on this? All right, everyone's comfortable moving this to first reading?
Yes.
just don't understand. This is a new policy, it's tardiness. You need to have a policy for tardiness.
Yeah. It's hardiness. All right. So I guess, like, my first, when I look at this one, Mr. Hurley, the first thing that stands out to me is, like, what connotates a lateness and/or excused or unexcused absence?
Say that again for students you're talking about?
Yeah, so
These are employees.
this is just for employees. Oh, yeah, it does. We're in the employee section, sorry. So, like, how do we define a lateness? Like, does everyone have a specific time they have to be here?
The expectation is that the employees show up on time as per their contract. That is the expectation that we have for all our employees. Of course, the principals are human, and if someone's been here 15 years and their car breaks down, and at one time the car breaks down on the way to work, of course our principals will cover that class for them while they get that. I mean, that's but the expectation remains the same. The expectation is that everyone's there all the time, every single one.
Right, but I feel like this policy, like, I don't even understand why it exists, considering that the only designation, or the only thing it states is that the superintendent and the principals are in charge of it.
Yeah,
That's it.
It's kind of silly. I mean, I agree.
Well, if you're gonna have, I don't think it's silly, but if you're gonna have a policy, like, have a policy, not, I mean, like, what do we follow? Like, how many latenesses can a teacher have?
The expectation is that everyone is here at one time every day. The only time that, obviously, we pay principals to use judgment one time in 10 years if someone has something come up, a car breaks down or something, we expect that we'll be human, but the expectation still remains the same, that everyone is here on time every single day.
Well, I get the expectation. I'm saying the execution is not always there, right? Every teacher is on time every day?
They should be there on time every day.
No teachers are ever late.
I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, so then what happens when they are late?
Then it's documented, or it's recorded in the performance evaluation, and if that doesn't solve the problem, then we start writing them up and we go through the rest of this.
You can go through
So
your
this-
yearly evaluation. If
this-
it's C, then it goes against professional performance.
Yeah.
So made for.
Have we ever had a tardiness, have we ever had a tardiness policy before? Or do we think we really need one? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I just feel
I know
like-
my answer is.
That would be, that to me goes against putting it in the principal's hands, that would go into whoever's performance evaluation for the year.
I just don't know, I just don't know if it's so
Like
important that it
micromanaging
needs to
everything.
have like its own 55 words.
I agree.
You know.
I just feel like
As
this
opposed
policy
to
is not
any
even
other
there.
things that we do.
I don't even feel like it's a policy. It's just
The
like a
ones about
statement that.
bullying, the ones about, those other things that have to do with employee behavior in the school, I think it makes sense to have a specific policy all spelled out, but I just don't know if we need this one. I just think it's
I agree. Just the general management of staff.
I think we managed to handle the few
That's
issues
not what
that
I'm
come up at a very low level and fix it quick.
It makes me wonder if it's something that maybe for a much larger district, you have to have something a little more codified, but I don't know if it matters.
It just seems like it's just.
We should throw it away.
Well, we'll leave it as is. I mean, it just basically says the school will take care of it. The administration will handle it. All right. This will be our last one. Outside activities. So what would be a good example of this, Mr. Hurley?
I don't have a good example of like what they're applying on this one. This was a ASBO related policy, and then they proposed that we don't have it for a I don't have an example. I'm speculating. It's just if someone is coaching in an outside group or something like that, the school board's not involved in any way.
Like our teachers don't have to report to us that they have outside employment, right? They have other jobs. They don't have to notify us of that, right?
I guess if somehow we'll get to the news or,
So is this like, I mean,
That's what the job is.
yeah. If
I
someone's
mean, the
dancing
only thing
down
I
the
can
street.
think of, I mean, I'm just shooting from the hip on this. The only thing I can think of is, say, for example, I was a teacher in the school district, okay, and I want to coach soccer at FC Revolution, and there are three, you guys had a baseball thing that came through here, and there are three kids from Daniel who happen to play on that club with me, you know, and I have to coach of that team. And the district has nothing, we're basically saying the district has nothing to do with that, you know, is what I understand. That's the only, and I'm speculating, that's all.
This is saying when non-school activities directly impact the employees' effectiveness. So it's the other way around.
I'm sorry, yeah.
right.
And it doesn't really say what we should do if it happens. You know, if somebody's doing something that wouldn't go over very well.
Man, I can't.
But
I'm
it's-
trying to.
But it's the only policy that we have that has anything other than, you know, the prohibited contact with students,
Right.
as spelled out in that other policy. It doesn't. There's nothing else that says anything about what people do in their off hours. This is the only one,
Right.
and it's a very broadly written policy. But there's a policy that if something came up that nobody can think of, that, you know.
Well, there was I guess a year or two ago, there was a teacher that lost her job because she was in the entertainment industry,
That's the thing that came to mind. Yeah.
and you know,
But that's right.
it's has nothing to do with school. It's an outside job, and I guess people found out, kids, parents, whatever.
And I guess this would this would cover something like that.
Right.
Yes.
I'm guessing that's
But it doesn't say what we would do.
No.
It says that it's there, and
But it.
we have to disseminate the policy.
Yeah.
What's the,
I guess what it does allow is allows for, like, rights on when you're doing a discipline incident, and you're citing some specific policy,
Violating the policy.
or violation of policy. I'm just guessing, yeah.
And I mean,
I do that.
if you've got somebody that you think something is egregious enough that you want to fire him or her, or discipline him or her, and it has to do with something they do outside the school where they have no contact with children. You know, well, what did I do wrong? There's no policy that says I can't do that, and now there is. You know, I'm.
Yeah, I think
Some
you're
policies are for the protection of the employees, and some are for the.
Well, that's what I was
protection of
trying- like,
school.
usually you can
And
get-
some are for both. you know.
usually when you read them, you can kind of get.
Yeah,
You can tell like the motivation or the
I
premise
think
this
it's
is on.
written in a way. I think it's written.
But
in
this
a
is
way-
almost like it's a hold harmless for us and saying that we're not responsible for anything you do outside of work, and it's also for the employee. It says, well, if you have outside activities, that's your business. Just don't let it impact your job. But in the
Yeah.
end, like, what
But
are we
it's not
really
written
protecting ourselves
specifically.
against? And
It's not written specifically. 'cause
no,
I
and then
can imagine
there's no
that
action
those-
that's to be taken. And
Yeah, because I could imagine that
The delegation of
those-
responsibility is just
those events
tell them there's
that
a policy.
occur Wouldn't fall into nice, neat categories, right?
it's just really another,
policy that doesn't say much.
huh?
It's a policy that doesn't say much.
No, it's like,
Clearly something happened in the state.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Somebody
I don't
thought it was
know.
a good idea.
So let's just say that's true. What did it do for them, right? What does it do for us? It
I
doesn't.
don't know, what does the term?
I don't feel like it protects us. It doesn't protect us or the employee. This policy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I got you.
All right. Anyone? Any changes? I mean, just leave it as is. Does anyone feel any different? We're good to move it. All right. We will adjourn.